Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mean Green Gridiron podcast. I'm your host Billy Sierra and joined once again by Carter. Carter, how you doing, man? I think he's doing good. I'll speak for him. Yeah, Carter's doing
Uh-oh.
great.
Are you there?
Oh, yeah, there we go. There you are.
I needed a second to compose myself, I guess. I don't know what happened
Yeah.
there, but we're good.
But yeah,
I'm so happy to
uh,
be podcasting again after another win. I needed my emotions to get in check.
yeah, 2-0 start with the win 33-30 against Western Michigan. Pretty crazy game. I think there wasn't a lot of positive UNT energy amongst our fans going on throughout most of that game, but to come out of that with a win feels pretty good. I think in the grand scheme of things, definitely, a lot of negative stuff to kind of analyze, but yeah, what were your thoughts kind of seeing us pull that one out?
My primary takeaway, I posted it in the forums on Go Mean Green multiple times, and I stick by this. I've seen us lose that game. I mean, keep in mind, I've only been a fan for 8-9 years. I've seen us lose that game 100 times. Uh, I've seen so many games where they come out as kind of slow as they did, and um, not that we were expecting week 2 for everything to be smooth like clockwork, but the offense was kind of stale. They couldn't get anything going in the running game. Drew looked a little bit unsettled to start out. The defense was kind of getting it taken to the teeth through their running game. They weren't passing at all, and we still couldn't stop them. We were playing undisciplined, some bad flags, and we still kept it close. I mean, part of that is probably just because Western Michigan doesn't have a huge talent leap over us. But even still, like, the game was close going into halftime, and even the doomerists in our circles were still just kind of like, okay, well, we really just need one stop, right? We just need one moment of swinging momentum in this game, and we can do this. And after halftime, I was so proud of how we played. Again, it wasn't perfect. One of the more undisciplined games I've seen from just a penalty perspective in a while. But obviously, that's coming off of the Lamar game where they played really, really solid and sound. I'm just so happy that they actually found a way to win this game. They probably got away with a couple generous PI calls in overtime. I'm not saying they weren't legitimate, but they definitely benefited from some help there. But they earned that win. There's nothing to take away from that. They earned going on the road, coming out of halftime and playing better on both sides of the ball. I think we outscored them 27-7 after halftime, including overtime. I'm pretty sure is correct. Something like that, 24-7, 27-7, something like that. So they did a great job of putting momentum their way. Messmaker looked way, way more comfortable as the game went on. Made a couple of, we talked about week 1, just some of those throws that you don't see quarterbacks who have started like 10 games ever as a quarterback at any level make. So some exciting stuff there. Still a little bit concerned that none of our running backs can seem to establish some sort of dominance in their roles early on. Mackenzie McGill has kind of really struggled to find some gaps and break loose. Kiefer Sibley's had some nice moments, and I don't know. There's a little bit of a concern there for the running game for me, especially heading into a big game against Washington State. But overall, I'm very pleased. I think that was, if you had told me that was the script going into the game, I'd be like, all right, bet. Like we get a nice big blowout win in week 1, and then week 2 they get a test. Western Michigan's not a bad team. I mean, that's a team that's probably going to float around the middle of the MAC, and that's a quality road win. And outside of South Alabama last year, it's probably the best road win we have outside of conference since the Arkansas game. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm content. That was a very good, hard-earned win. I'm proud of the guys.
Yeah, it was definitely a harder win. I was actually at the game, and you could tell, I think, that they had a pretty good crowd. Their student section was completely full the first half, and then the second half they they vacated. So I think maybe that may
you
have
could
helped a
hear
little
them on
bit.
TV.
Yeah, they were loud, and they were definitely ready to go early on. But like I said, at halftime, I was thinking, oh man, they're taking a while to get back with their beers or whatever. But they did not get back, and I think that helped. I think early on it was definitely a field position battle game. You could tell that Western Michigan and their coach Lance Taylor felt like their best shot at beating us was to put us in a phone booth and try and beat us that way. And I think early on, how that played out was they were punting the ball and pinning us inside of the 5-10 yard line, and basically saying, all right, we're going to put you guys in a phone booth. We're going to put your backs against your own end zone, and we're going to just put a ton of pressure on your offensive line and make you either run the ball through our defense or, again, make your quarterback drop back into his own end zone. So I think that really kind of put us off our game a little bit. It put Mestemaker off his game a little bit. Their defensive line played pretty well. We knew it was going to be a good defensive line coming in. The offensive line definitely had some struggles, particularly at right tackle. You had Larry Moore starting for Jim Toe Badegwu. Larry Moore did not do well. He gets pulled. Keon Johnson goes in, and they kind of rotated a little bit until finally just sticking with Johnson for most of the rest of the game. And I thought he did play a little bit better than Moore. Dixon didn't play super great on the right side either. And then Braden Nelson at left tackle is kind of interesting position for me on this team, because on one hand, he is definitely a stud, young offensive lineman. But you look at Nelson, he came in here as a guard. He started early last season as a guard, as a true freshman. And then just poor tackle play necessitated bumping him out to tackle. And he kind of just became our left tackle last year by default, because there just weren't great options. And I think even now you can still see he's growing into that role still. He's a good player. He's a good offensive lineman. But left tackle is definitely a role that I think he's still growing into. And I liken it to, for those who are basketball fans, North Texas. A couple years ago, we had Aaron Scott, and he was a standout on our NIT championship team. And then that offseason, we basically were going to lose him to bigger NIL fish. I think it was Oklahoma in particular. And we allowed him to stay. We got him to stay in with the promise that he would have a much bigger role offensively. He went from a 6-point a game guy, that NIT team, to the next year, I think he was kind of our main option offensively before Jason Edwards took off. So all that to say, Aaron Scott, we kind of took our lumps with him in basketball, where he was growing into a bigger role that maybe he wasn't really ready for or super equipped for, but it meant we got to keep him. Braden Nelson, I think, is somewhat of a similar situation, where it feels like if he were at a P4 school, he could probably get a nice little NIL deal and probably be a starting right guard at a school like OU or a school like LSU or wherever. He could probably be a starting guard for those bigger schools, but we get to keep him by, I think, probably having an NIL deal, but also allowing him to play left tackle. So all that to say, you kind of take the good with the bad and realize, okay, maybe left tackle is not his best position, but it's better to have him than to not have him. And it's better to, I think he's still our best option there. So like I said, he didn't play a perfect game. He did struggle a little bit with the pass rush and then made a penalty. But overall, you talked about the run game. I think the run game looked really good in the second half. McGill ended up over 100 yards. And ultimately, what I think decided this game was just the fact that as the game went on, we had a passing game and they didn't. And Mestemaker, like I said, he didn't start off great. Eric Morris mentioned he was kind of rattled for the first time he'd seen. But I thought that he was kind of the clear advantage we had, in that we had a passing game. We had Mestemaker who could, make shots downfield and get us back in the game. And they had Brock Lowry for most of the game, and he was clearly killing us with his legs. And in the second half, we really honed in on that and said, all right, if you're going to beat us with your arm. And he couldn't. And that was the right move. They only threw for 87 yards on us. That's the least passing yards we've allowed. Our defense has allowed under Morris against any team except for Navy and Army. So that was really impressive. And most of that came on a couple Jalen Buckley just kind of wide open plays where he picked up 51 of those 87 yards. Just one was a wheel route out of the backfield that he was just completely uncovered, and the other one was just a swing pass that he just kind of had some space. So they only had one catch by a wide receiver on Saturday. It was one catch for 5 yards. So it was really just running back dump off and tight end. That was it. And so, I think that boded well for our secondary. And like I said, we shut them down as the game went on. What else did you kind of see with regards to, how we were able to sort of pull that one out and come back?
Yeah, you made a good point. Drew was definitely a catalyst, kind of one of those great groundbreaking players in the game, which, I mean, if he is that in more than 6, 7, 8 games this year, that's like a best case scenario for not a true freshman quarterback, but a freshman quarterback who, again, I know it's going to be such a tired talking point at the end of the year, but this guy has not played quarterback ever. And
you're seeing that development
step
live.
into a role that he has here. Mm-hmm, you are, but it's good development. You can see him start to get more comfortable. You're seeing him, find reads better. You're seeing him, be able to read his routes better. Like it's good development. You're not watching him struggle out there. And there's going to come a time this year where you're going to see him, in a game where things aren't going his way. I'm curious to see how he responds when that's the case. But at least for right now, man, I mean, I don't know how you have any complaints about what he's done so far. He really is like a game-changing player out there. And as far as UNT quarterbacks go, I mean, I know we've had, 2 consecutive really efficient quarterbacks in Chandler Morris and Chandler Rogers. And obviously, if you're without those guys in your games the last 2 years, it's a big difference maker. But in terms of being a guy who can completely flip the script of a game, I don't know that either of those 2 guys were that specific player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it feels nice that Drew has that kind of potential. So going forward, like I said, there's going to be a game where, he's going to have to face some uncomfortability. He's going to not be the best player on the field, and we're just going to have to see how he responds to that when it happens. But at least as far as Saturday goes, I mean, you could tell he was hyping his guys up. The leadership was there. As the game went on, he just looked more and more comfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really proud of his game. I'm going to be singing his praises all year, but Trey Fields had an amazing game on defense. I expect him, like I said, in the preseason shows to be, kind of the leader, the anchor of this defense. And he was exactly that Saturday. Like his tackles were the best. He looked like the most athletic guy in our defense. Even going too deep. So really, really happy with how he played. But yeah, the leadership and coming together of this team really shined through on Saturday. And I know Drew's like an obvious candidate to take a look there and say, oh, this guy played well. Well, yeah, he's the quarterback, but like it really is important to have, in an offense like this where there's so many spread out options and, kind of like we talked about in the previous shows that, this team doesn't have one guy that they can just spam like we've had in the past with like Jalen Darden and DT Sheffield. We don't have that guy. So if you have a quarterback who is in the shoes that Drew is in, being able to adapt on the road, again, I know it's Western Michigan. I know it's not LSU or Clemson or whoever, but like he's in a road game in his first FBS regular season start in what was a hostile environment. Their students did come out. You could hear the FUNT chants on the TV.
Mm-hmm.
They were loud. I was watching the game. I was covering the Rangers game that night, but I had my headphones on. I was watching on my computer, and you could hear it through the headphones. So the fact that I could hear Western Michigan's crowd over a real crowd in real time was, hats off to them. They did. You were there. I'm sure you can attest a little bit more, but it sounded like a really good environment. I'm very, very excited that a young kid who has so much ahead of him, hopefully all at North Texas, or at least a good chunk of it at North Texas, clearly seems to have that gene in him to say, okay, I can get settled into the game. I don't have to be perfect from start one. Cause you would kind of see that with past QBs here where like, I don't want to name names, but there were times where like we would just be out of rhythm from the start and there wouldn't be an opportunity to get adjusted. And he seized an opportunity Saturday. So I don't know how you come away from this game. there were some people saying like, oh, we escaped with a win. It's like, no, I don't feel like that at all. I don't feel like we escaped with a win at all. I feel like Drew and other leaders on the team, but particularly Drew, stepped up and made that win happen. And you talked about McGill. I didn't mean to sound like McGill has been a bum to start the year, but I just meant kind of through the first 6 quarters of play, it's been a little bit of a struggle trying to get that explosiveness from him. But yeah, you mentioned he was great in the second half, and he ended up over 100 yards. So it just seems like at halftime, I don't know what, if it's coaching, guys just outlasting their players. I don't know, but our guys stepped up and made it happen, and I am very, very happy with this win. Anybody who thinks we escaped or like managed to flimsy out this dub is sorely mistaken.
Yeah, I will say about Mestamaker a few things before we get into the special teams aspect, because we haven't touched on that, and that was maybe the biggest reason why this game was almost lost. But with Mestamaker, I saw 3 throws on Saturday that to me were not just NFL throws, but really throws that kind of separate him in terms of potential from the other guys that we've had come through here that are good college quarterbacks. I mean, there were 3 big time NFL throws, and the first one was he almost pulls an Orlovsky. He's almost runs out the back of the end zone, and he kind of goes around a lineman to roll out to the right, and in the back of the end zone hit, I think it was Simeon Evans at the 20-yard line on the sideline. I mean, that throw live, like I said, that looked like an NFL quarterback. I've been to a handful of NFL games, and obviously I've been to a ton of college football games. That's not a throw that you see a ton at the college level, just in terms of where he was and his feel for the situation to get out where he did and to throw that ball kind of off his back foot, just on a rope to a receiver right on the boundary, and just hit him perfectly with plenty of time to spare before anyone from the secondary could contest the ball. That to me was just such an NFL throw that I think just really stood out. Then another one was similar situation. He's rolling right, and he's almost out of bounds. He kind of has to throw it. He's falling to the right out of bounds, and there's a defensive lineman coming to hit him, and he throws the ball downfield. I want to say it traveled about 55 yards in the air from, I think he threw the ball at the 15-yard line, and it went all the way down to the opposing 30-yard line, and Wyatt Young dropped it. And the reason why Wyatt Young dropped it, if you look at the replay, is because I think he realized, oh shoot, I got to come back to this ball because of how far away he is. And then it turned out that he didn't need to. That ball would have hit him where he was at originally. So he came back to that ball more than he needed to, because he realized what a compromised situation Mestamaker was in, and realized, I need to come back to the ball. But then, like I said, Mestamaker just uncorked one, and that was one of the more impressive just arm talent throws that I've seen. And like I said, it was an incompletion, but you saw that play there. That was in a situation where we were not playing very well. For him to put that kind of ball on down the sideline, I feel like that could have sparked us to maybe even an earlier comeback. But regardless. And then the last one was that touchdown to Cam Dorner, just a little skinny post from Dorner, but Mestamaker had to
could not have placed that ball better. Could not have placed that ball better if he tried.
Yeah, and a great catch by Dorner too, because he has to get a foot down. The ball he has to reach out for it. But again, like you said, that was a perfect throw, perfect catch. That was really one of the more impressive plays I saw on Saturday. But you could tell, when we talk about arm talent, you hear NFL scouts talk about it a lot. Arm talent isn't just arm strength. It's one thing to just chuck the ball, but it's another one to kind of give that ball, tunnel that ball exactly with the path that it needs to, at the speed that it needs to. And that ball was dropped in over the end zone perfectly, and just could not have been a better ball. Like you said, Dorner makes the catch, touchdown, and that's a big reason why we get that game to OT. So Mestamaker again didn't play perfect. I was shocked to see on Going Green that people were calling for him to get benched, which I know it's Going Green, I know it's reactionary, but I couldn't believe that. That was not my impression all of the game. There was definitely some bad plays. There were a few balls that should have got picked or could have gotten picked for sure. When you look at the replay, they weren't easy picks. They weren't just straight in the dude's chest, but they were balls that the defender got was able to get 2 hands on and didn't catch. So, regardless, like I said, I totally, don't want to just make it sound like he just played a perfect game by any means. But again, just his talent and his growth throughout the game is what really impressed me and made me feel like we were going to come away with a win there. And then, one other thing about the offense is that Wyatt Young, man, he's really starting to grow into just a quality receiver. He made a few catches on the sideline that were just big time concentration catches that we talked about this, his growth as a receiver. Those are receiver catches. Those aren't athlete playing receiver. Those are wide receiver making a wide receiver play. And just his speed, man, when he gets in the open field, he's going to do some damage. And that's definitely a guy you want to keep getting the ball to and giving a chance to make big plays. Especially Miles Coleman had a few drops that were uncharacteristic. Hopefully that's a one and done situation. But, regardless, I think you keep feeding Wyatt Young. So, and then last, special teams, just terrible kicking game. Eric Morse talked about it, but, the last kick, we thought it was an onside kick or something. And apparently it was supposed to be some kind of like squib or some kind of pooch that just went nowhere. And the kicking game wasn't great. The punting game wasn't good. And their punter had a great game up until the end. And then their kicker was just drilling field goals off the post, but they were going in. They completely outplayed us in the kicking game. And that was a big reason why, they were able to, make it as far as they did. But I think that's probably my biggest concern going into Washington State right now is just this kicking game. Like it looks like we're limited there. And that's my concern is I'm concerned that we're a little bit limited in the kicking game and that some of these mishaps aren't just, a one-off mistake here. It's kind of lack of talent potentially at the kicking position and even a little bit punter. Sawyer Evans averages has not been great this year compared to his last 2 years. So that's kind of my concern right now heading in the Washington State game is can our kicking game rebound? But more importantly, can they show something that they haven't showed all season really? That's why it's a concern to me, I think, mostly.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't want to call anybody out by name, but Sawyer Evans did not not have a great game Saturday. It really did feel like the worst case scenario of kicking, kind of like you said, where like I'm hoping that's as bad as it gets, but I can't recall a time ever where it was so lopsided in how well they were forcing our field position versus how poorly we were forcing theirs. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen a UNT game that was that bad. So I'm hopeful that that's as bad as it gets. I agree with you. It is a little concerning 2 games in that it's this much of an issue. And I think when it's this consistent this early on, it's probably indicative that, you're probably, a little shorthanded when it comes to a kicking game. Having said that, it's at least something you can live with if your offense is efficient, which ours seems to be. So it is concerning. The worry there is you hope it's not bad enough that it loses you a game, which it certainly could have Saturday. So, I definitely just want to see better field position on both sides of the ball. It's such a underrated but important part of games where, like, if you go back and look at the drive chart from Saturday, look how many of our drives started from before our 25, and look how many of their drives started after their 35.
Yeah, I want to say
like how efficient they were.
Yeah, I think they might have started something like 10 out of their 11 drives past the 35-yard line.
Someone posted it in the group chat, but I don't have that in front of me. But point being, just I don't think hopefully it'll be an issue that like prevents us from making a bowl game or anything like that. I think that your hope is that okay, you can work some of this out early on and kind of get better as the season goes along. But you don't have that you don't have a Trevor Moore type kicker or a special teams of years before where it maybe wasn't an issue at all. It's definitely one of the odder, newer issues I've seen from a UNT team. It doesn't feel like we usually struggle that hard on special teams, but this year it does. So just hoping that, it's just a glitch in the matrix 2 weeks in and it's something that's fixable. And if it's not, it's something the coaches are going to have to, fix next year. And in the meantime, you got to find a way to work around that. So.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah, that's the thing is you don't get to add anybody to your roster at this point in the season. You have to roll with what you have and just figure it out.
Right.
So yeah, that's gonna be a big.
Well, who knows this day and age? Who knows? You say that.
Yeah, they did add a kicker to the roster recently. I think he was a transfer from like Fort Hays State or something. I don't know if that's an option, but yeah, definitely looking looking for any way you can upgrade the kicking game at this point. But yeah, going
I just
into
need them to fix it because I don't want the guy sitting behind me in week 6 to still be yelling, sign someone off the soccer team, which I've had to deal with every single, like, oh my gosh. If I hear that one more time from a football fan, just, why don't you sign someone else? It's like, putting a sumo wrestler in net for a hockey team. It doesn't work. It sounds fun, but it doesn't, it's not that easy. You got to find someone who can make the field goals with people yelling at them. So it's not that simple.
And stay tuned for our spinoff show, Sports Science with Carter. I think that one should start airing soon. But yeah, going into the Washington State game, we have a chance to start 3-0 for the first time since 2018. You go back before that, I don't remember how long it had been since we started 3-0. So, definitely hard to come by 3-0 starts here at North Texas, but big opportunity against as big a name opponent as you typically get coming into DATCU. Washington State's 2-0. They've got a decently solid team. We're favored, and they're probably about as good a team as you'll get. That's still going to be we're going to be favored coming into DATCU. Their coach, he came from San Diego State. He was San Diego State's coach last year, head coach. They lost in the semifinals. Year before that, he was their head coach for his first year, and they went 15-0, won the national championship. Year before that, they were national champions as well in 2022, and he was the DC that again got promoted to head coach. So he's a defensive minded guy, and listen to his press conference for this week, and definitely seems like a pretty intense football coach. Just classic, like very disciplined, very kind of militaristic in kind of how he approaches the game and how he, what he expects out of his players. He's 38 years old. His name's Jimmy Rogers. So, going in, they're 2-0. They've beaten San Diego State, which was fairly impressive. The week before that, Idaho took them down to the wire. That was not as impressive, especially with their offense only scoring 13 points against an FCS team. That that made us feel like we have a pretty good shot going into this week. But then, like I said, they seemed to rebound pretty well last week. They beat San Diego State 36-13. Their quarterback, was his name, Jake Potter. He had a good game, 257 yards. He threw the ball 42 times, and I was listening to their press conference. According to one of the reporters in Washington State, that 42 passes is the most that any team has attempted since he's been head coach, going back to his San Diego State days. So I think he's a guy who wants, classic defensive coordinator mindset, wants to run the ball, wants to control the clock, wants to limit turnovers on offense, and then, kind of grind the team down as the game goes on. Their running back, Kirby Voorhees, he transferred from San Diego State with Rogers. He had a pretty good game last week. He seems like he's kind of a threat of the backfield a little bit. I think he's got 5 catches this year, 13 carries, 67 yards. So again, I think that you look at a lot of their roster seems to be guys who have stuck it out at Washington State. They going back to their last coach, Jake Dickert, and even back to Eric Morris was the offensive coordinator in 2022. And he mentioned it today. A lot of the guys who he recruited are still there. So it does seem like a team that's had decent continuity, but you also look, they're not setting the standard for NIL either. So, they lost their quarterback, John Mateer, who's at OU from last year. So, they're definitely dealing with that as well. But again, up and down, a pretty solid team. And I think this should be a really good matchup. What are you kind of looking at going into this one, Carter?
Yeah, it's you touched on his defensive, Jimmy Rogers, his defensive approach. This is like a complete change of pace for Wazoo.
For sure.
For as long as we can remember, have been the high scoring, 67 points a game type team with no defense.
Yeah.
This team can play defense. At least 2 games in, they pulled away from San Diego State kind of in the second half. I think it was close at half. I watched a little bit of that game. They've really stifled the passing attack from both Idaho and San Diego State. Now, again, I don't know how much of a passing attack either of those teams has, but still, they've I don't think they've allowed 200 passing yards period yet. So their secondary has done a really good job of preventing any sort of air attack. They do have playmakers. You mentioned Voorhees; he's definitely a two-way guy, be a game-changing type of player. But like you said, this is a different Wazoo, and maybe in its former iteration, you might feel a little bit more confident in Eric Morris's knowledge of that system. Obviously, with the new staff, it's different, but just this is not a normal Wazoo program. Like this is they lost so much in the turnover portal or transfer portal last year. You can call it the turnover portal if you want, because that's basically what it is. They lost a lot of turnover, or they had a lot of turnover, I guess. Anyways, it's a new team. There's a ton of athleticism on the defensive side. Their running game is strong for what it is. Voorhees and Angel Johnson both are, super sturdy running backs that can wear you out. I don't think this is going to be a team that's as successful as, say, like Army is running the ball out on you and wearing you down. But it's going to be a tough approach. They seem to have really kind of found their formula early on. Maybe not to the degree that they'd like to. I don't think anybody would be happy with a 13-10 win over an FCS team, but they're in a weird transitionary period anyways, and I think this is a really great time for them to kind of change up their identity. And Jimmy Rogers, great coach. Just I loved that hire. When I did all my previews for teams this year, I was going through like all the biggest hires in the offseason, and he was in like the S tier for me. I mean, he's won tremendously. He's so young. I think this is definitely going to be a fun program to keep an eye on, and hopefully they end up on their feet somewhere here in the next couple of years. I kind of feel bad that they got stranded behind with Oregon State. I still am a huge proponent of bringing back the Pac-12, but that's another conversation. This is a tough team. This is going to be a team that I think at the end of the year could be one of the better records on our schedule looking back. So as far as beatability, I think they're beatable. I think they're a team that you'll be able to probably have a little bit of offensive success on, because I don't believe they've played anything close to what we have on offense. If you stumble out the gates like you did Saturday against Western Michigan and you need time to find yourself, I don't know that this is the defense you want to do that against. But I don't think that this team is as prepared as they might appear on paper to stifle North Texas. I think this is a winnable game. And like you mentioned, I can't remember the last time we had a opponent this tough or I almost said Apogee, at DATCU or Apogee. I'm trying to think of what the biggest game that's been at home since I've been a fan is, and I can't think of anything out of conference besides like SMU.
Yeah, I mean, there was Cal in 2023, but they didn't end up being a very good team that year. They sure kicked our ass that day, but they weren't, the big record team that would have really raised eyebrows at the end of the year. It was just kind of like, wow, we let up a million points to a terrible team, and it was definitely a marker.
Right.
But yeah, no, this is definitely a big time matchup, and it feels like it's a chance to really earn some fans, or at least earn some kind of renewed interest from people, because look, you get a, like I said, name brand team in. If you can beat them, look, they're 2-0 next to their name, so it's not just a brand. Like, they've got a decent looking record. For people who maybe aren't as a little bit more casual, but regardless, it's a chance to start 3-0, and there are going to be a lot of people there. I always like the family weekend, in terms of like the family weekend. To me, is a really good chance to make fans for kind of more of a long-term thing. I always am of the opinion that I think good teams make the students, the people who are students during those good seasons. I think that's where you can kind of sustain some fandom. You look at basketball and the Maniacs, like those guys are going to be in it for a long time. There are still so many North Texas fans from the Dickey days, from the early 2000s, where it's like, Go Mean Green is just littered with so many dudes who were in college in the early 2000s who like that was awesome for them. They're getting to watch a conference championship team every season. Like that is such a great way to build fans. Whereas, during the Dodge years and you're winning 1-2 games a year, like it's hard to get those people to come back when that's kind of their lasting taste in their mouth of what UNT football looks like. So again, just a great opportunity. Like you said, I think on paper they're definitely beatable. They've got some solid defensive players. I think that is still going to be their staple, probably as long as Jimmy Rogers is their coach. And our offensive line is going to have another tough test. I think they're going to have to hold up and keep Messemaker upright and give him time, because that was kind of the biggest thing early on.
For
Was
sure.
there was a lot of pressure on Messemaker early. There was a lot of him getting forced out of the pocket, or just timing getting thrown off. So that's a matchup where I think our offensive line has to be more physical than they were this past Saturday. They can't get punched in the mouth and just have the tone set early on that Washington State's going to be the more physical team on the lines. We got away with it against against Western Michigan, but again, you don't want to try and overcome a situation where it looks like the other team's just more physical on the lines than you. So yeah, that's going to be a big key. Offensive line, can they hold up? Defensively, I like our chances. I know there was a lot of I think ire or consternation about our defense. Our performance this week was kind of like, oh, we're back to the old North Texas. Our defense still sucks. And the reality is we held Western Michigan to, I think, like 307 yards or something. It was the least amount of yards we've allowed on the road for any team in the Morris era. So, in that regard, we did hold Western Michigan in check, at least, yardage wise. They were severely helped out by field position situations. But again, I think overall the defense definitely had some misplays and some busts, but overall, I think that the defense still clearly showed to me that they're vastly superior than what we've seen the last few years at a minimum. But
Yeah.
I think Washington State maybe. I don't see necessarily the playmakers on that offense to where I'm super scared about one or two guys. Like Jalen Buckley was a really good running back for Western Michigan, and he played well behind the offensive line. I don't see a ton of guys who really scare me on that Washington State offense. Potter at quarterback is still, you can tell he's still developing. He's first year starter. I don't see our defense just getting completely shredded. I think that it's going to be a chance where, you can get them off the field. You can get the crowd behind you on a, third and long. And I think you're going to have some.
This is so refreshing, dude. It's so nice talking about these teams we're playing and being like, I think our defense, they might be okay. Like,
seriously,
this is what we said for years, is like, just give me a team that can get off the field a couple of times, or just like, even a below average defense is good enough to get this program some trajectory. And like,
right.
I absolutely agree. Like they might be able to beat you in the running game, but I don't think they have kind of the arsenal where, like, if you beat them at one thing, they're going to kill you with another. Like they are beatable. Correct. Like this is a team that is rebuilding, and no disrespect to Wazoo. I like Wazoo. They're a program I always want to see succeed. Big fan of the flag at College game day, but like, this is a completely brand new team, and a chance to exploit that is coming to Denton at 2:00 Saturday. So, I'm on par with you, but it's so refreshing to be like, yeah, man, I think our defense like might actually be able to win us this game, and like not feel crazy saying that. Like, it's fun. I know that we're only 2 games in. Like, there's a long way to go before that has any real substance, but it's still a treat. I'm soaking it in.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just want to say too, like, oh, go ahead.
No, I say we're -6.5, so it's not, it's not like we're coming in as the underdogs.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, but
I get it, but I'm just saying, it's apparent that this is a game that we can win, not just a homerism kind of thing.
Sure. Sure. And I also like, I've just people, of course you're on the forums, you're on the boards, you got a lot of people who are used to being hurt, and I get it. But like, as undisciplined and unprepared as the defense looked early on against Western Michigan, they fixed it. like they did a good enough job of adapting to it, and like they weren't able to get them off the field in the first half. The second half, they made some big, like not only big stops, they made big third and shorts. Like there were a couple plays where they had like 3rd and 3 or like 4th and 1 or like whatever, just very short yardage, big plays. And our defense was able to get off the field. And it wasn't just like because their quarterback overthrew the receiver or we got lucky. Like our defense actually earned the chance to get off the field. I think if you're, if you're watching the games, there is a stark difference in years past where like maybe we would have gotten, lucky because of an incomplete pass or, just a misread or something. But that was an earned win. I said it when we talked about the game earlier in the episode. Like this is a win that they earned. So going forward against a team like Wazoo, it's like I feel like they can earn another win Saturday. It doesn't feel like we're coming off the skin of our teeth like, oh, we got away with one. It's like, no, we outplayed them when we needed to. They made big plays when they needed to on the defensive side. And it's such a refreshing thing to be able to say that, because now it's like, okay, well, you're not just doing what we've done for the past couple of years, which is praying that you can outscore the other team and hoping that you can stop. We've played a lot of good offensive players in the American, but I wouldn't say we've played anybody who's, been like generational in terms of athleticism or anything like that. And then still just some guys have been able to destroy us and shred us the last couple of years. And now it feels like there's like an identity of like, okay, at least 2 games in early on, it feels like we have the confidence and composure to go out there and play a complete game of football, which we have not really had under Eric Morris yet. So it's exciting. I think we got some weather on our side. It's going to be a raucous crowd. Or do you know what our capacity is at yet?
No, I think the last thing I keep seeing from Miles is they're pushing 21,000 right now. So we'll see. I think there's a lot of that is kind of pre-sale tickets for family weekend and just standard season ticket holders. But I do think there's going to be a big walk-up crowd on Saturday. So I think there's going to be a good showing regardless of what the number ends up being. I think there's going to be a good amount of butts and seats. So that's there's always that difference between the announced attendance and what it actually is. I think this will be a one where we actually have a good butts and seats attendance. So I fully expect the crowd to look good and to hopefully be a factor. They definitely have a chance to impact this game. Young quarterback. This is their first road game of the year. They played both their games in Pullman so far. So like you said before, just with the weather, it's going to be warmer, and they're a team that, while on the warmer side of Washington, is obviously not a hot state, not anywhere near like Texas. And I think that this should be a big chance to have that home factor in our favor. So
their social media graphic team seems to think we're in a desert in the middle of Arizona. So maybe they're misled, and we should keep letting them believe that. But I just wanted to add real quick. You talked about just how it should be easy to get fans to buy back in. I always just go back to it's an easy finger to point, I should say. But what's the signature UNT football win since beating Arkansas? You have to think about it, right? There's there are a couple big ones, beating UTSA at home to kill their undefeated season. There are some, big ones, but as far as memorable, we're still talking about it today wins, there really haven't been that many big moments since the Arkansas win. People in Denton still talk about the Arkansas win. Arkansas was terrible that year, but it was like beating a SEC opponent on the road is a big deal. If you can beat I don't know what you call the Pac-12 now, but you beat a Pac-12 team at home that's 2-0, that's a big deal. That gets people talking, and you just got to win some of these games. We talked about it in the schedule preview. There's opportunity on this schedule to jump up and win a game you're not supposed to, or maybe not used to winning. You need to beat UTSA this year. It's a team you haven't really had their number in recent years. Go beat them. Or, beat Army, a team that just destroyed you on the ground game last year and just wore you down athletically. Go beat them, right? Go beat Washington State. Right. This is a big game at home. I channeled through to the students last week. If you're a student listening to this, please go to the game. I'm going to the game. I haven't been to a UNT football game in 2 years. I'm going to this game. So if you don't like my takes, you can come talk to me and tell me about it. I'll be tailgating. I do have to leave at halftime. I can't stay for the whole game, but I will be tailgating and at some of the game and saying hi to people. So this is a big opportunity for people at Denton to get out and show some support. And I just for once, it does not feel like one of those games that's going to go like you said, like Cal 23 or just one of those opportunities, one of the SMU games where it's just like, oh, we got a big game tonight in Denton and it's gone. Like
right. Yeah,
it feels like this might actually be a really good football game. And we can start wrapping up and getting into the score predictions, but I do think this will be a close game. Whoever ends up winning, I think it'll be relatively low scoring, close game, and you're going to get entertainment if you go to DATCU Stadium on Saturday. So highly recommend.
Yeah, agreed. I think that it's going to be interesting to watch some of the things that we did well. What if we win this game? I think it's because we cleaned stuff up from last week, and
absolutely,
if we don't clean stuff up, I don't think we win this one. But things like Miles Coleman had 3 drops. Miles Coleman, I don't think he's had 3 drops in his whole career to this point, but he had 3 on Saturday. Obviously, the penalties, the kicking game, the pass protection, and then Mestamaker just kind of being maybe a little bit rattled early on. Like all of those things that we saw on Saturday that concerned you. Like if you were watching that game Saturday and you saw something that concerned you, those need to be cleaned up, and maybe not every single one cleaned up perfectly in 1 week. That's not realistic. But does it look improved? Does it look like we're, hey, maybe we don't keep Mestamaker completely sack free the whole game, but we limit it to maybe 1 sack or 2 sacks, and they're not just killers. It's just kind of a maybe it's a blitz that he missed or whatever. But again, the offensive line isn't just getting whipped and getting driven back into his lap half the game. That kind of stuff, just improving, moving in the right direction. That is going to be huge if they're going to win this game. So like I said, all those areas of concern from last week, keep an eye on them. And if they're getting better, then I think that bodes well for us. That just an improvement to keep highlighting the things that are going well for this team, the things that we are doing well, and the overall talent that we have that does seem to be pretty impressive. So yeah, with that, I think I'll go ahead and give my prediction. I'm gonna go 34-31. Good guys. I think we squeak one out, kick a field goal late, just make the plays that we need to down the stretch again, and get some people running on the field. I don't know, but at least get a nice roar from the crowd towards the end of the game that we all kind of feel cheers from for a little bit of time to come.
If you're a local sports fan, it's been the year of weirdness. You got the Luka trade, then the Mavs get the number 1 overall pick. The Rangers are making a late playoff surge with a bunch of car salesmen. There's weird things happening in DFW right now.
You're not going to see the Micah trade?
Oh, I'm not a Cowboys fan, sadly. But
I'm not either.
Yeah, I feel real torn up about that. But yes, you do. You do also have the Cowboys trading away a generational defensive talent. All that being said, there's weird energy in the air right now, and despite every fiber of my being telling me that this is going to go how I expect it to go with every UNT game that has any sort of built-up excitement or emotion, my heart goes back to La Tech 2018, Cal 2023. These games where I really feel like, okay, this is our chance. We're gonna make a statement and show the world who we are, and then just fall on our faces. I don't think it happens. I really feel like a different energy is around the program right now. I think that Mestamaker is, at least at this point, again, we're probably going to look back on these podcasts, or at least I am, in 10 weeks and say, oh, come on, we were being so silly. But Mestamaker's been so fun, man. Like this is a really fun quarterback to watch play. You mentioned it, just the development is happening in front of your eyes. You're watching a kid go from an exciting word of mouth guy to like, oh shoot, he can actually ball. Like,
yeah,
this is fun. And that's what makes college football fun, is when you get stories like that. I think this program has needed a shot in the arm of some fun recently. And this is a really fun story. So I'm going to ride with the Mestamaker train. I don't think it's going to be one of those, 49-40 type games. I do think that final score probably ends up in like the 23-17 camp. I think Wazoo has a better defense than we are giving them credit for, at least early on. And I don't know how much, kind of like you mentioned, all those things we got to clean up, preventing Drew from getting sacked, or finding some stability in the running game, which Wazoo doesn't have a great run defense. They've allowed 135 yards a game on the ground, but just some little things here and there. You're not going to clean everything up in week 3, but how much can you clean up from week 2 to week 3? That's what makes the difference in 2-1 and 3-0 teams. So I do think that despite every fiber of my being telling me to pick against the Mean Green and telling me I know what's coming and I know I'm going to get let down, I think this is going to be a really big game. I think the crowd's going to be awesome. It feels like something's in the air. And if we go 7-5 and I just have to eat my words, I'll do it. I don't care. I've had plenty of bad takes before. I've got plenty more in the vault. Like, who cares? I'm gonna go with my gut here. I think UNT wins. I'll bump each team up a field goal. So I'll say the final score is 26-20. North Texas wins.
All right. There you go. I think we're all expecting a good game, regardless of how this one swings. We're not looking for a stinker here. We think this is gonna be a good competitive football game between two competent college football teams and in front of a lot of people. So looking forward to it. Hope everybody gets a chance to make it out to the game. And thanks for listening. Go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green. Come say hi to me.